Hello friends, this is Ankur Bagai from Ankur Bagai Media. And as the list follows and continues, we will talk about the 7 rumored and upcoming cameras for 2018. These cameras are confirmed by the official websites of the manufacturers, as well as these cameras are also confirmed by the many YouTubers as they have in-hand reviews of these cameras. These are the major manufacturers, but only one manufacturer hasn't any camera planned for this year. That is Nikon. We are expecting another upgrade for the Nikon D750, which is rumored to be a D760 by many websites, including Nikon rumors. Also, a new APS-C camera, which is expected to be a hybrid model of the D3400 and D5600. But it is not confirmed, just the rumors. We can also expect a mirrorless camera which will be in their J line, seeing that the Canon have given a new camera in their mirrorless camera, Canon M50. Nikon haven't launched or have any official news yet for any upcoming camera. It is also rumors by the various sites that we can also expect a new camera in their professional lineup, which could be D5S or the D6. But we have to wait for any further news. So we have cameras from 4 manufacturers: Fujifilm, Panasonic, Pentax and Canon. Also one camera from Sony which will be launched tomorrow in the international market and in the April in Indian market, which is the Sony A7 Mark III. While the other cameras are right now planned to be launched in April or after April in the international as well as the Indian market. Pentax is a surprise entrant as they have the new upgrade Pentax K1 Mark II, which is the upgrade to the predecessor Pentax K1. Pentax K1 was a good camera but wasn't having a much of the success being from an unknown brand for the Indian market. As the Indian market is ruled mostly by the Nikon, Canon and Sony, both Panasonic and Fujifilms aren't also much into the traditional DSLR or mirrorless format. Panasonic is mostly famous for their video and the professional video cameras, but as the Indian market is updating, we are also seeing people using Fujifilm cameras as well as the Panasonic GH series. So let's talk about the new upgrades and the new updates that will be coming for 2018 in spring and summer. So the first camera we will be talking about is the Sony A7 Mark III. Sony A7 Mark III is called up the basic camera by the Sony company. It is the upgrade for the Sony A7 Mark II, which was launched back in 2014 along with the A7, A7R and A7S, which were the first 4 full-frame mirrorless camera from the Sony company. The A7 Mark III doesn't have a low light performance like A7S II or the big resolution sensor like the A7R3, nor it does the sports camera like A9. It is something and bits of everything. It is called a perfect all-rounder camera for any full frame or any kind of photographer who want to get in the full frame industry. It will be priced around $2,000 or $140,000 for the body only. We are not sure that if the Sony will be giving any kit lens, as with the Sony A7 Mark II we had a Sony 28-70 OSS lens. But if we wish that like the companies like Nikons and the Canons are giving their big kit lens like 24-124 for the Nikon side and 24-105 for Canon side, we wish that the Sony can do the same for the A7 Mark III. So if we talk about the specification, it features a 24.2 megapixel full frame BSMI XMOR-R CMOS sensor along with the latest Bagai X processor. It is using the same processor as their latest A7R Mark III, while it have a same processor just with a lower resolution from the A9. It has an ISO range of 100 to 51,200, which could be expandable from 50 low to 2,04,800. The DxO hasn't tested it yet as it is not launched in the market for consumer purposes. But we will talk about this camera once it is launched and we can get a review piece from the market. But the biggest advantage for this camera could be the 15 shots for dynamic range as claimed by the company. If it can give this, it can be the perfect camera for all the purposes like landscape, wildlife, sports and other stuff. Let's continue. It has a 3-inch tilting touchscreen along with touch to focus and a newly AF joystick. You can use a joystick to scroll through the other various features and through the menu system and also the photos. You can also use the AF joysticks to control the focus points as it shares the same focusing system from the Sony A9. We are not sure if it would be as fast as the Sony A9, but it has the 10 frames per second burst rate with 693 fair detection focus points. So it is the 10 FPS burst rate can be counted as a new update from the Sony A7R Mark III, while the 693 phase detection focus points are from the Sony A9. So the A7 Mark III can be called as a hybrid of all the three cameras they have currently in their lineup right now. It's have a 5-axis in-body image stabilization with a new upgraded stabilization mode with up to 5.5 stop of compensation as claimed by the Sony and as tested by CIPA standards. It also have a dual media slot out of which one will be GHS2 while the other one will be the GHS1 SD card, or if you're using a Sony memory stick Pro. So it has a major upgrade from the original Sony A7 Mark II in various aspects, especially with the bigger focusing points, as the original A7 Mark II was having only 25 contrast detection focus points, as well as the upgrade from the 5 FPS to 10 FPS, and the 5.5 stop composition from the original 4.5, and also the dual media slot which is also shared in the Sony A9 and A7R Mark III. The next feature which could be the game changer for all the companies and especially for the Sony and the Sony users are the 4K in 30 or the 24 frames per second and 1080 from high frame rate of 120 till 24 frames per second in XAVCS, AVC HD and MP4 codec. So it's their first entry level full frame camera along with the 4K, and it will be going hand in hand to direct competition to the Nikon D850 as well as the Canon 5D Mark IV. Right now Sony have various 4K cameras just excluding the original 4 from their 2014 lineup that are A7, A7 Mark II, A7R and A7S. While the A7S does have the HDMI out 4K, but this camera will be having the direct out of camera 4K. It is also including the S-Log2 and S-Log3 color profile for the vibrant gaming, which means it can completely destroy other companies if they doesn't come with a newer upgrade. If we talk about the same entry level, Nikon only have the D750 or the D610, while the Canon has the 6D Mark II. All the three camera doesn't have 4K. D750 and D610 is yet to get an upgrade, while most of the features surpasses those cameras very easily. So if you are planning to buy a Canon 6D Mark II, I shall prefer that you should wait for this camera and see if you can get out much more from the original from the 6D Mark II, or you should go to the Sony side right now. It is also rumored that it will be also becoming the Sony's new 400mm f2.8 G Master lens, which we talked in our last video along with the Sony A7R Mark III. As it was leaked, it is right now on the BHS video that it will be launched in the spring of 2018, but the date is not confirmed yet. The next camera which is newly launched is the next camera is the Fujifilm X-H1. X-H1 is the videographer's camera as said by the company, but the marketed as something else. So let's talk about the specification. It features a 24 megapixel mirrorless APS-C CMOS X-Trans CMOS 3rd processor along with the X Processor Pro. It has an ISO range of 200 to 12,800 with expandable of 100 low and 51,200. It has a 3 inches articulating touchscreen with the top LCD which is taken from their medium format Fujifilm GH5S. It has 14 frame per second burst rate along with 325 AF points if you are planning to use it for still photography. It has a dual media slot and both the slots will be UHS 2 SD card. It has 5 axis in-body image stabilization with up to 5.5 stops of compensation as tested by the CIPA standards. It do DCI 4K in 30 or 24 frames per second in MPEG4 and H.2.264 film codec. While it also does 1080p in from 60 to 24 frames per second in MP4. While it also features a special 120 frames per second high-speed video and full HD. It has f-log with 12 stops of dynamic range in the video mode. It will be priced around 1.20 lakhs and will be available in March 2018, but we are not confirmed with the date yet. The reviews are over the websites as well as over the YouTube, while some are disappointed because of the marketing feature as it only does 3 minutes of 4K or 10 minutes of full HD without the vertical booster grids. It lacks a external audio port. So if you are planning to buy one, you need to get a vertical booster grip. Without it, you might have many constraints. And along with the booster grip, it is weighs much more heavier than the Canon 5D Mark IV, which is a traditional full-frame DSLR. Mirrorless first priority was the less weight, but with the grip, it doesn't weigh any less. Next camera is the Pentax K1 Mark II. Pentax isn't a big brand to be talked about in the Indian market, as most of the users have only heard from the Pentax are their SLR film reel cameras or the medium format camera 645Z. The Pentax 645Z is one of the cheapest medium format camera along with the Fujifilm G50S. But in their traditional DSLR lineup, they are not so much famous like the Sony and the Canons. It features a 36.4 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor along with the Prime 4 processor. It has an ISO range of 100 to 8 like 19,200, making it the highest, having the highest ISO range in any DSLR. And we're not talking about the expandable, but it is mentioned as the native on their official website. It has a 3.2 inches tilting screen. It has 5 axis in-body image stabilization with 5 stopper compensation, making it only DSLR of its kind to have an in-body image stabilization, because all the other DSLR doesn't have one. Only mirrorless camera are right now having the in-body image stabilization. It has a 4.4 frame per second burst rate with 33 AF points, out of which 25 are cross types with FAFOX 12 AF system. 4.4 FPS might sound a bit of old, but it is not meant for the sports or any other kind of photography, but meant for like portraits, landscape, wildlife, and other stuff. It features dual media slot, out of which both are UHS 1 SD card. It might be a disadvantage having a 36 megapixels file means at least 40 to 50 megabytes of photos in the raw format. And UHS 1 might make it slow for the photographers using it. If we talk about the video feature, it doesn't have 4K, which is right now a standard need for every photographer or the cinematographer in their DSLR, which is one of the reasons that many for the photographer might ignore it once again. It only does 1080p in 60 to 24 frames per second in MPEG4 AVC or H.2.64 MOV film codec. If we talk about the disadvantages, it has no 4K, only UHS 1 support, no high frame rate like 120 or 280 for ultra slow motion or slow motion videos. It has slow burst rate for still photography. It has an older AF system which isn't fast enough. It has less AF points considered and seeing into the 693 focus points of A9 and A7 Mark III, or even 153 points of the Nikon D850 or the Canon 5D Mark IV, which have 45 AF cross-type focus points. It doesn't have touchscreen, which might not be an issue for many, but it comes in handy. The Pentax doesn't have a big market, so don't expect any kind of second-hand lenses for this camera. It and it also have less native lenses in their lineup, around just 100. And the choices of lenses are also less. It is priced around 1.50 lakhs with 28 to 105 3.5 to f 3.525 kit lens. The next is the Panasonic GH5S. GH5S is an upgrade to the original Panasonic GH5 and it is considered as the videographer version of the GH5. Most of, as Panasonic doesn't know, that most of the users are using GH5 only for videography, as micro four third sensor isn't good for still photography. But GH5 have given some kind of upgrade, so we can actually think it as a successor rather than a variant of GH5. It features a 10.2 megapixel micro four third live MOS sensor. So reducing the megapixel from 20 to 10 might be a thing that the Sony has done in their A7S and A7R lineup. The next is the ISO range with 160 to 51,200 with expandable from 80 to 2,04,800, and it is like 10 times better than the GH5 in the low light situation. And we all know that Panasonic GH5 hasn't been really good in the low light situation or the dark situation. It also features a 3.2-inch fully articulating touchscreen with touch to focus, which will come in handy for the vloggers and cinematographers. It features a 12 frame per second burst rate with 225 focus points if you are planning to some kind of still photography, but I doubt it. It has a dual media slot of UHS-2 SD card. It does 4K photo with a burst of 30 and 60 frames per second respectively, just like the GH4 and the GH5. It does 4K video recording in from 60 to 24 frames per second and 1080 in 90 to 24 frames per second in MPEG-4, H265 and H.264 codec. It also does 180 frames per second ultra slow motion in full HD. It features the Panasonic's own V-Log for wider gamut range and the color correction. It is priced around 1.50 lakhs, which is higher than the GH5, and it is just for the body. So if you are planning to do some kind of low light photography or cinematography, you might give it a think about. So the next camera is the Canon M50. Canon M50 is a mirrorless camera from the mirrorless line, and it features 4K, but the 4K is just another gimmick from the Canon. So let's talk about the specifications. It has a 24.1 megapixel APS-C CMOS mirrorless sensor along with the Digic 8 processor. It has an ISO range of 100 to 25,600 and expandable of 51,200. It has a 3 inches articulating touchscreen, which would be in handy for the vloggers. It also does 10 frames per second burst rate with 143 AF points and dual pixel AF, but you cannot use the dual pixel AF if you are recording in 4K. It has a single media slot, which is UHS-1 SD card, which might slow the things down for both still and cinematographers. It is the first APS-C as well as the first mirrorless and the third overall camera to feature 4K in the Canon lineup after Canon 1DX Mark II and Canon 5D Mark IV. It does 4K in 24 frames per second in MP4 with additional 1.3x crop factor above the 1.6x crop factor of APS-C sensor, making it around almost 3 in multiply crop factor. So if you are using a 10mm lens, it would be around 30mm. So if we talk about the widest lens that Canon has to offer is the 11 to 16mm. So the 11mm will be at 35mm, so which means you will lose the wide angle purpose of a wide angle lens. It would not be come in handy for running and shooting or the vlogging. Also, you will lose dual pixel AF, which is also a big problem and the biggest advantage Canon have. It also does 1080p from 60 frames to 24 frames per second, also in MP4 format. But you will have the dual pixel AF and there won't be any kind of additional crop factor like 4K have. It has Wi-Fi as well as Bluetooth connectivity with HDMI mini through micro Type D output for the HDMI outputs. It has a small battery life of 235 shots only. It is priced around 58,400 along with the kit EFM 15 to 45 f3.5 to 6.3 IS SPM kit lens. It might be the cheapest 4K camera you can get in the market, but it won't be as useful as other 4K cameras are. Also, it also doesn't have any kind of in-body image stabilization, so you have to use some kind of image in stabilized lenses only. Next camera is Canon Rebel 1500D, also known as Rebel T7 in US. It features a 24.1 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor with DG4 Plus processor. It has an ISO range of 100 to 6400 with an expandable of 12,800. It has a 3 inches fixed screen, 3 FPS burst rate with 9 AF points with 1 cross type, single media slot which is UHS-1 SD card. It does 1080p in 30 or 24 frames per second or 720 in 60 or 50 frames per second in MOV H2 64 codec. It has Wi-Fi and NFC connectivity along with HDMI mini through Type-C output. It has a battery life of 500 shots. The 1500 is their new lineup, which will be considered as their basic and the entry level lineup for the Canon users. So if we talk about the feature, it might sound like a Canon 500 or 550D that is almost like 10 years old. These features are like we are using a camera from like 2005 or 2006 or even 2010. With companies evolving day and day, this camera might not be for the professional or any kind of semi-professional or amateur use even. It is a camera that is considered to be an entry-level camera for the people that are looking into get into a DSLR lineup to ditch the point-and-shoots commercial cameras. It is priced around 36,500 along with the 18 to 55 IS2 kit lens and will be available in 2018 along with the Canon 3000D. So there are two new lineups, the 1500 and the 3000 lineup. It might sound like a Nikon D3000 again, and even the specs states so. It has a 18 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor with DG4 Plus processor, which was first found in Canon 500D, which was launched back in 2009. It has an ISO range of 100 to 6400 with expandable of 12,800, a 2.7 inches fixed screen, 3 FPS burst rate with 9 AF point with 1 cross type, single media slot which is UHS-1, 1080p in either 30 or 24 frames per second or 720p in 60 or 50 frames per second in MOV H2.64 codec, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity with HDMI mini through Type-C output, battery life of 500 short. All the camera features are like we can have a new Canon 500D just with a new name. Except if we don't talk about the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth connectivity and some of the couple of new features, it is like having another 500D again in 2018. It is priced around 29,300 with 18 to 55 IS2 kit lens and will be available in April 2018. And if you ask me, I would prefer getting a older 1300D or 1200D or even a used 700D, and it would be like 10 times more better than both of these cameras combined. That's it from this video, guys. Make sure you like this video, subscribe and share this video. We will be coming next week and continuing our list, and we will talk about the 10 cameras that are discontinued or were launched before 2016 and are worth buying even today in 2018. At what price you should expect a newer body or a used one in the Indian market, how much bargain you should be looking at, and what features we can have from the older cameras. Are they worth it or not? Also, we will be uploading our first vlog on Sunday, which is about the drone photography. We'll be talking about the new drone policy of 2018 and more about it, why the policy doesn't imply with the aerial photography and why it is not the one we need. This is Ankur Bagai from Ankur Bagai Media. Thank you and stay frosty. Bye bye.